Voilà, merci, nous sommes de retour. Je voudrais m'excuser auprès de nos téléspectateurs, ceux qui suivent justement en direct depuis ce matin. Merci. Alors, deux petites choses. Il y a une petite coupure, ça peut arriver. Nous sommes en direct, bien sûr. Et la deuxième chose, c'est que maintenant, eh bien, nos traductrices vont aller directement aussi vous donner les informations en anglais. You couldn't follow this morning the first panel pretty well if you didn't speak French, but it was all in French. Now you will have all the translations for you on the website et pour Monaco Info également. Voilà, merci en tout cas d'être avec nous. On a la session qui arrive maintenant, le sport universel. Football for the Goals. Comment le pouvoir du sport et son influence peuvent-ils contribuer à la réalisation des objectifs de développement durable? Et pour nous en parler, il va nous dire quelques mots, je vais appeler le directeur des relations externes aux Nations Unies, M. Maher Nasser. Maher, good morning, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity and invitation to be with you, Excellencies, guests. I believe there's supposed to be a presentation. I'm not sure. Yeah, thank you. In 2015, I was privileged to be at the United Nations when world leaders came together after a process of consultation across the world that involved more than 10 million people who were asked the question, if you were to choose the priorities for world leaders to adopt in 2015 for the next 15 years, what would they be? And the result of that process that involved people contributing their ideas through social media, online, but in person-to-person meetings led by UN country team across the world, it resulted in what was known as Agenda 2030, adopted at the UN by world leaders in September of 2015. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets became the blueprint for a roadmap to reach and create a world in which everyone thrives in peace, justice, equity, on a healthy planet. Some people were saying it's an impossible agenda. It's too optimistic. It cannot be achieved. But the experience that we have learned at the United Nations from the Millennium Development Goals that were adopted in 2000 is that when you set concrete targets and goals and you work and you create policies and implement to achieve them, you make progress. And we have made progress. But that progress has not been on track. And even in 2019, before the pandemic disrupted our lives and set economies back, and as we have heard, also sometimes had to come up with ideas of how to be active when we are under lockdown, it really pushed us further off track. Earlier this year, with Russia's invasion to Ukraine, the war, the impact on the global energy and food prices has even exacerbated that further. We have more and more people who have, for the first time since 1990, more and more people fell back into poverty. The number of people living in extreme poverty has increased for the first time. The number of people who are food insecure has increased. However, there has been progress, and that progress is documented every year through voluntary national reviews that member states submit, and we compile a report called the SDG report that is published every year in July. And this is a sample of what it looks like and how the progress has been uneven. In some countries, there's been more progress, and even sometimes within countries, more progress in urban cities than in rural countries. And all of that progress is under threat from the continuing crisis of climate change, from the impact of the conflict in Ukraine, but also the conflict in other parts of the world that are creating displacement. The most number of displaced people ever is now. So how do we get back on track? So these are questions that we have been asking ourselves in the department, but also across the United Nations. How do we really bring the enthusiasm and commitment to get all hands on deck to achieve the SDGs by 2030? How do we mobilize everyone everywhere? There's an urgency, and there's also a lot of ambition. So we had to design and think of creative solutions. So throughout the last 6-7 years, we created a SDG Media Compact. How can media companies can help create a better understanding of the SDGs and the goals and the targets and how to achieve them? We created an SDG Publishers Compact because we publish the documentation from the UN. How can publishers and the publishing world achieve that? And earlier this year, already going back to last year, we started conversations about how do we really tap into the power of sport. The power of sport as an inspiration, the power of sport as an activity that actually engages and has an economic impact on society, and as a force for peace. It has global power and global reach. If you look at the background of this slide, you see soldiers playing football. That is an image from the Christmas truce in 1914. During the First World War, the first Christmas, the soldiers who were behind the enemy lines decided, it's Christmas, let's not fight, let's go and play football. So that was one of the earliest documented in the current age of how football brought soldiers, warring parties together. I was in Liverpool in May, visiting my son who lives there, and there was a statue of two opposing soldiers shaking hands, and in the middle, a football. That symbolizes the power of sport, the power of football can bring people together for peace. And now we say, to achieve peace, peace is a necessary component to actually achieve development, because when you have conflict, there's no way that you can achieve peace. Sustainable development. So on the 6th of July of this year, which was actually the opening day of the Women's Championship, Euro Women's Championship that the UEFA organizes in the UK, and we chose that date in particular because we wanted to emphasize that when we talk about sport and we talk about the SDGs, one of the SDGs that the previous panel really touched on, which is gender and gender equality. That women's football, women's sports don't receive the necessary and support and exposure that they deserve. So we launched Football for the Goals as a platform for the football community to engage with and advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals. It taps into the power of football to champion the SDGs and to achieve behavioral change at the individual level, but also at the organization level to achieve sustainable practices in the football industry and beyond. Members of Football for the Goals use their outreach power through the tournaments, players, corporate brand exposure, media, and their fan communities. We have created a set of principles. Members who want to join Football for the Goals have to commit to implement sustainability policies and practices, to advocate for and implement the SDGs, to adopt a human rights-based approach that including addressing issues of racism, discrimination, and avoiding discriminatory practices, and of course, promote equity and equality, including gender. And the third and final commitment is climate action, because the climate crisis is not leaving anybody behind. Who can join Football for the Goals? It is anybody who is working in the football field. Confederations, federations, national associations, leagues, clubs, teams, player associations, organized fan groups, media, commercial partners, civil society organizations, and foundations. From 6th of July until today, and every week, these numbers have to change because now we have 92 confirmed members, not 85, in 35 countries. And you can see some examples of the members who have joined us. The first member to join was UEFA, because we timed it to also happen with the Euro Women's Championship. One of the other important participants that we would have had a panel member from representing FIFPro, which is the players' union representing 65,000 professional football players. Unfortunately, Alex Calvin, who was supposed to be with us, missed her flight last night, and we're going to have a panel of all men, which is something that I pledged never to be on. But the force of the flights has really force majeure. So we're trying to make up for that. We will have a female football player with FIFA who is now in Doha join us virtually before Didier Drogba speaks. So we're trying to fix that. So please don't publish my photo with just men on the panel. I always say we call it a manel at the UN, and we try to avoid manels. The membership people, when entities that join we have regular reports, newsletters. We share best practices and handbooks. We're developing a guidebook for members of Football for the Goals, workshops, convening events. We hope to have the first convening in the beginning of 2023, less than a year into launching the Football for the Goals. We facilitate connections to and with UN experts, UN entities in the countries that they operate, and it's an opportunity for networking at all levels in the football industry. How can you and forums such as this support apply to be a member of Football for the Goals? Just Google Football for the Goals, and hopefully it will be the first result that you will find. The website is available in the 6 official languages of the United Nations, and the form is also available in multiple languages. Just complete the form and submit it, and you will hear from us hopefully soon. Identify potential members within your network. If you are not in the football field, encourage them to apply. Amplify content and messaging online and on social media platforms. Support member activities when relevant. I think these are some of the key ideas. As I said, we plan to have a first convening of Football for the Goals lessons and reflections. Also, how can we develop a system of accountability for the members who have joined? They have joined by pledging to support these principles. So 1 year down the line, where and how are we going to hold them accountable? And I think that's the presentation. So now we go to the panel.
Yes, Maher, thank you very much. It was very clear. And let's welcome the old man, like you said. Jean-Emmanuel De Witt, PDG de l'AS Monaco. Merci de nous rejoindre. Et puis Laurent Prudhomme, le président directeur général du groupe L'équipe. Merci d'être avec nous. Venez sur Young Men. Voilà, ce sont de jeunes hommes qui nous rejoignent. Bienvenue, asseyez-vous à côté de Maher. And after, you can talk in between you, and after we'll have a guest from Doha. So maybe not Honi Talije, but maybe Didier. So we'll see that. Thank you. Enjoy it.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Can you maybe start to tell us a bit introduce yourself and your role of your organization, and why are you here?
Hello everybody. My name is Laurent Prudhomme, and I'm the CEO of L'Équipe. L'Équipe being the #1 sport news group, media group in France right now, with a newspaper, daily newspaper, with some magazines. We also run a linear free-to-air channel, fully dedicated to sport. And we have a digital platform gathering almost 3.5 million unique visitors a day. Wow. So it's, I'm really, really proud, being in charge and running this fantastic brand, which is L'Équipe. And why am I here? I think I'm here to also tell you about L'Équipe and what L'Équipe is doing to try to change the perception of sport.
So you have a very important platform. You mentioned the numbers of daily visitors. That's amazing. How and to what extent do you try through this platform to connect the concepts of what this forum is about, peace and sport?
I think that we, Media Group, we have a massive responsibility in this domain. Specifically nowadays, I would say, if you take the example of what is happening right now, specifically in Doha with the FIFA World Cup, where we are facing, I guess, a lot of social struggles, issues related to human rights, inclusion, diversity. I think we have a role to play to put in light all these topics. I think we have a role to play, as I said, in the change of perception for sport. Sport is not only about competition. Sport is not only about performances, but sport is also about peace. And my view is that we are extremely lucky, we at L'Équipe, being a media group in France with the two major sport events coming up, with the Rugby World Cup in 2023 and the Olympic and Paralympic game in 2024 in Paris, in the country of human rights. And I think that more than being responsible, we at L'Équipe, we have a role to play. We have to be a leader in this change of perception.
Thank you for that, and I hope that you will also join the SDG Media Compact that I mentioned before.
Absolutely.
So this year, for the first time, you awarded the Socrates Trophy to the professional footballer who, I'm quoting here, who has carried out solidarity actions in favor of inclusion and equal opportunities and in the connection with the evolution of society. Now, why did you decide to add this trophy to the Ballon d'Or ceremony?
First, it's important to remind everyone that L'Équipe L'Équipe Group has been the founder of Ballon d'Or in 1956. And I think Ballon d'Or has always tried to follow the change of society. Back in the days, and up to 1994, only the European football player could get award with Ballon d'Or. So we tried to first change that, and after 1905 onwards, non-European football player could get the award. And after we had some massive changes, like in 2018 with the Women Ballon d'Or, and like you said, in 2022, the Socrates Award. The idea behind this award has been, together with Joël Bouzou and all the organization of Peace and Sport, but also with the massive support of Prince Albert and Rai, and all the family of Socrates. We really wanted to put in light and highlight all the football players who are giving a lot to the community, and all this invisible work in this day and age where media exposure implies a lot of social responsibilities. Most of the time, we don't really see this invisible work of this very prestigious football player.
And I believe most of these changes happened under your leadership, if I'm not mistaken, especially the women football and recognition. So have you been measuring the impact of these changes? Because I think the first panel this morning was talking about how important it is about measurement, because to be able to assess whether your policies were right or not. Have you been doing that? If you can share some aspects of that with us, please.
Our first KPI, specifically around Ballon d'Or, and specifically about the ceremony, would be the ratings. And I will always keep in mind, for the last edition of the Ballon d'Or ceremony, the incredible speech from Rai. Rai, was on stage for this Socrates Award, and Rai, Shevchenko as well, came after. All these speeches were very strong, very powerful. And for me, the best KPI was the audience. We've met the best audience ever on this show. And the impact on social media have been really massive, absolutely massive.
Thank you. This reaffirms that when entities, whether they're in media or in sports, are seen by society as contributing to social cohesion, to social development, then that is rewarded.
Absolutely.
Being good is good for business.
At the end of the day, yes, exactly, and that's what I wanted to say with these two major sport events coming up in France. I think right after FIFA World Cup, the expectation from everyone will be high, extremely high, and at the end of the day, could also benefit to business as well.
And thank you. So now we come to you, Jean-Emmanuel Dewitt. So. Starting with the same question, if you want to introduce yourself and the role of your club, and how do you see your contribution to the panel discussion today?
So, Jean-Emmanuel Dewitt, CEO of AS Monaco Football Club. Why I'm here today, first because we're in sport, because I represent today an historical and very prestigious club. With 8 titles, French titles, 5 times winner of Coupe de France, 5 times semi-finalist of European Coupe, etc. With 5 players that were world champions, so a very strong historical club at European level. But also because our club is totally associated with the Principality of Monaco. We are part of the Principality, and we sense that we have a mission to accompany the Principality of Monaco and to accompany them on values that are important to them. Values of excellence, values in sport, in education, that is very important. So we feel that we have a very deep role in tolerance also, deep role in promoting the Principality as a club. But also because nowadays club, and especially the AS Monaco, are becoming huge media platforms. We have 22 million followers on social networks, which is quite impressive. So it's the second largest club in France in terms of number of followers, and growing quite fast, with a very strong engagement, which gives us a fantastic platform to provide much more than sport. And we feel that we can use it, that we should use it, and it's our obligation and mission to use it to show more than sport.
Well, congratulations on these amazing numbers, actually. Maybe, what is the definition that you apply in understanding the role of sport and the club in promoting peace? And I always like to add sustainable development, because they both go together, I think.
I think the mission of and how to define and where would be the definition. I think it's to federate communities. My background is about digital communities, media communities, and I really believe that we should play a big role, and sports should play a big role to federate communities. And we can do it in 2 ways. First, because we are in a world that is led by social networks, and as we all know, social networks have a huge impact to polarize people. Meaning that when we have a strong footprint in social network, we should definitely try to influence these polarized audiences. But we also see that audiences believe less and less in their politics, or the ability of their politics to bring a better world. And we all understand that we can't wait anymore, meaning that we have to become actors, and the audience of social networks, they want to become actors. So based with this fantastic platform that we have, as a sport, as a team, but as a club, but also as a media platform, we can play a big role to nurture this definition and to reach these goals of federation of communities. And a third point is simply education. Because to federate, we have to educate. And as you know, AS Monaco is a very well-known, renowned formation club to train young players, young professionals, with great success. So, but we train more than just young players. We train men. We provide them values. It's not just football and classes.
Can I ask, do you have women's footballers?
Not under our responsibility. There is women football in Monaco, but not under our responsibility.
Maybe that's something to consider.
But there are many sports. The ISM covers all the sports in Monaco with different actors.
So you mentioned your background in digital. How do you see digitalization and living in the virtual world is impacting the world as we live in it, and also sport? More and more young people are drawn into video games, virtual. People now talking about the meta world. Is that a threat to physical sports? And how do you plan to make a difference in this space?
I personally see this. There are a lot of different versions that we are just in the beginning of it. So I will stay humble, and I won't predict what will go for the 10 coming years. However, my feeling is that these new trends are more new tools for promotion of sport rather than threats for the sport. So I think all of us that are involved into sport, we have to think about how we can include exactly like we use now social networks. It was new 15 years ago, and it's part of our daily life. It's one of the pillars of our clubs. Exactly in the same way, we have to think about how metaverse can be a platform to promote sport, and not the way around.
Our own experience in working in the digital and social media is, in the last actually 2 years, especially with COVID, is that it has become a space that misinformation and disinformation, unfortunately, travels much faster than information, and has exasperated the challenge of actually confronting COVID-19, but also dealing with issues of peace, harmony in societies, and that is a challenge that we are all now having to really reflect on. How do we create a better opportunity for utilizing this technology that was promising to connect the world for good, and there's a challenge of it now connecting the world for harm, and I think that's a challenge.
Yes, and here there is, to my mind, a very important role. We are, as a club, but also professional players or sports people, have to play the role model, because we are in a totally digitalized world where media influences so much engaged communities that we have to use our players and our clubs to become ambassadors of models. And especially, as you said, when we are confronted, we try to represent the good side of the world, and in opposition to all what you described. Given the star system around sports, and given the digital platforms, media platforms that we have now, I really believe we have strong instruments to fight against this.
Are we on time for?
Yes, we are on time, but you can keep on discussing. But we have our guest in Doha, and you know that we said we have, you know her, former captain of the Palestinian football women's team. It's Honi Talje. Honi, you with us? How are you? How are you in Doha? And she's working also for FIFA. And Maher, you will be able to speak with her in just a few minutes. Yeah, there we are. Can you listen to us? How are you?
Of course, I can listen to you. I'm fine. How's everything?
Good, good.
It's sad I'm not in Monaco, but I'm also here in Doha with the beautiful atmosphere of the FIFA World.
I leave you under the arm of Maher Nasser here with us, and Mr. Prudhomme, and also Mr. David. So feel free to speak with them, and then we will have another guest with you, Honi, later on. 2 or 3 other guests.
Yes, absolutely.
Good afternoon, Hani. How are you?
Salam Maher. I'm good, and you?
Good, good. I guess everybody in this room in Monaco is wishing they are with you in Doha for the World Cup. But you're probably wishing you're here in Monaco.
No, it's a great atmosphere here at the World Cup in.
So I don't know if you were able to follow. I think we lost the connection.
I think I'm back.
No, don't worry. We're live, so it will be like this sometimes. So we will find Hani back.
So maybe if you can talk about your perspective as a football player and now in FIFA. I don't know if you heard part of the discussion this morning about, and in this session, the role that sport and football can play in promoting peace and cohesion in society.
Absolutely. For me, all these discussions I have experienced personally in my life as a dreamer who started just playing football when I was 7 years old in the streets of Bethlehem, in the midst of, I would say, destruction, despair, and inequality at all levels, growing up in Palestine under all the difficult challenges that we face as a Palestinian every single day, and how football at that moment gave me hope and gave me opportunities and transformed my life from being just in difficult circumstances to hit the goals and achieve my goals through football, and how specifically it changed my life at all levels. Being a woman, being a Palestinian, being an Arab in the world today, with lots of prejudices, a lot of stereotypes, a lot of mindsets about each culture, each people, women, and all that, and how I managed to achieve that through football was for me a key, and was for me a way to transform later many women's lives and yours in Palestine and beyond. And that happened to me specifically personally. So I understood and I know the power of football in changing lives, in giving confidence, in building self-esteem, in tackling social issues. And that we will talk a lot about it later in the panel, how also football can manage to tackle social issues from health to poverty, to gender equality, to environment, sustainability, and all that. And this happened to me every single day in my life. So I lived through this, and I knew that football can bring me to the world stages of FIFA, and also to become a champion for peace, which I'm very proud of. And now, how I am transforming this message or these goals to other people around the world, whether in youth, in kids, refugee camps, homeless around the world, disadvantaged groups, to believe that they can dream, to believe in the power of football. Because if it happened with me in the midst of all these situations and challenges, I'm sure it can happen to so many kids around the world and change their lives. So that is the magic of football indeed.
Thank you, Hani. Maybe you're at the World Cup. Can you maybe describe to us not what's happening on the pitch, which we can see reported directly, but I understand there are also some SDG activities related to promotion of the Sustainable Development Goals in the fan zone and in some parts. Have you seen some of those, and how can tournaments play a role in raising awareness for and incorporating elements of sustainability? What we're trying to do in Football for the Goals, is it practical?
Of course, I think, despite the fact, of course, that football is running and the competition is there and the amazing stadiums and all that's happening on the football pitch, but there are so many things happening off the football pitch at the same time. And tackling also the sustainable goals are very important for us also, but also for the Spring Committee and Generation Amazing and all parties involved. And that's why we have this cooperation with WHO, for example, to promote health. And just a few days ago, I received Dr. Tedros from the WHO to the FIFA Fan Fest, and so the activation that he's doing with the government of Qatar and FIFA together to ensure that we communicate this message about health lifestyle through football and the legacy that we will leave behind. But not only with the WHO, we have other initiatives with Save the Planet, Education for All, Equality for All. So all these activities are taking place at the same time, and I am involved in a few of them to see that the power of football on the social impact level, not just as a competition as such. And this is important we also communicate that, because a lot of people focus now on the competition, who win, who lose, which is amazing, fantastic, emotions, inspirational, but it's also other inspirational part, which is the legacy that we leave behind, which is the social impact that football can bring to people at all levels. And why in Qatar? Because it's very inclusive. The whole world is in one place. Billions of viewers are watching, and this is the best opportunity to tackle those goals, to emphasize on the sustainable development goals, to partnership with all these UN entities and organizations.
Thank you. Thank you, Honey. I'm jumping on it with Maher, Honey, but I know you have a guest with you. Maybe he can come and join you. One of the best football players from Africa, Vice President of Peace and Sport, and Champions League winner, Didier Drogba. Didier, bonjour.
Bonjour.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
We're here with a lot of experts here in Monaco talking about peace through sport. What is Maher? I will leave you with Maher Nasser, who is from a United Nations, is moderating here this panel. Can you answer to his questions? Maher, please.
Thank you. And good day to you, TJ. So if you can maybe, starting with the same question that I asked the panelists with me here, can you talk about your role as the Vice President for Peace and Sport and what brought you to this organization and this concept?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak about peace and sport and my role as Vice President of the organization. I mean, it's just my experience as a player, being able to travel and to play in four different continents and to meet so many different cultures. But it's also the impact that I had with my teammates when Ivory Coast was having a civil war, and the message we sent to the populations had a big impact on the future of the country. So I believe that's the main reasons why I've been chosen as one of the peace and sports, how do you say, person, to raise awareness about the power of sport, and how sport can bring peace, how sport can help to reach the sustainability, and this is the reason why I'm here, and I'm really happy to have this responsibility as a player, but mainly as a man, as a person.
Well, thank you for that. And I know that also individually you serve as a Goodwill Ambassador for the World Health Organization, and before that you were with UN Development Program. Do you see a role that others, athletes and super famous people like yourself, what additional responsibility comes with being an influencer to young people and young generation in promoting the Sustainable Development Goals and what brings peace and sustainability to our communities?
I think there's many ways. First of all, I've been inspired by the work ex-players like Zinedine Zidane and Ronaldo were doing with the United Nations, and they are legends to me, so they inspired me, and also what I've seen in my country and in many countries all around the world gave me the belief that I need to use my my voice, I need to use my fame as a platform to inspire other athletes and to make sure that we can have impacts because people listen to us. So when the pandemic started, I had to think about how can I help, how can I bring something as a voice, as a how can I say, like worldwide voice, because football now I think is the most popular sport in the world, so people listen to what athletes are saying. We are example, we are role models, so I just wanted to make people understand that the more active you are, the more healthy you are. So we started this campaign with WHO here, we Drink the Moves, where we challenge all the players to move, to show their moves. So it's a fun way to encourage people to stay active. So this is part of the sustainability, and I'm really happy with the results we have here. You know, we're talking about being active. We're talking about also the food, the healthy World Cup, which is really important to us. And you can see people could be disappointed not to have maybe alcohol here, but I think it's for the good. It's for the good of everyone, and I think this is the best and the first few steps towards a sustainable, more sustainable World Cup and more sustainable sports events.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned your country, and I know, and I was really impressed with the story about 2005 when you led your country's qualification for the World Cup, and the incident where you pleaded for the warring factions to. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about that, and how one person can inspire peace negotiations and cessation of hostilities?
Well, we were just qualifying for the first World Cup, first ever World Cup of Côte d'Ivoire, and at the end of the game in the changing room, I asked my teammates to go on our knees and to ask and to beg the politicians, the politicians to stop the war and to sit down together to discuss. And because when you have one country and our parents were not talking to each other, and the only time where those people were sitting down together, it was when the national team was playing. So slowly we understood the power of our game, of our results, and in general of football. So that's why I decided to do so, and this message was spread in the news every day for 6 months. And I don't know if there was a correlation, but 6 months later there was a ceasefire signed, and we moved toward a more peaceful country, and we organized elections later, and when we decided to go and play in the part of the country where the rebels were staying, after that game, people came to me and said, I can go back to my house because you've been there, it means the war is over, so I can go back to my house, which is amazing. I didn't even think about the power of football at that time, but this made me realize how powerful we can be, and we need to use this in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing that incredible example of inspiration and actually connection between peace and sport. Thank you, Didier. Thank you, Hani, for being with us from Qatar.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
So maybe we have a...
You have 2 minutes to conclude with our
2 minutes,
guests. Yes,
maybe
please.
just final words from your takeaway from maybe some of the interaction we've had, and also you heard from...
honestly, I was extremely impressed by the story just mentioned by Didier, and the power of sport and athletes toward their country. So that's it gives me a lot of hope for future.
Yeah, very, very inspiring. And this is a very good illustration of what we discussed earlier, of what can be done, and it shows how much it works. Just also want to say, this collaboration with Peace and Sport that we have between AS Monaco and Peace and Sport is also quite a bold engagement from a sports club. As compared to many other actions that usually we see when sports clubs support some other actions, which is good, and we all have to cooperate together. But it's a very bold action. Just for your information, we have brought more than 2 million worth of media value through this action to Peace and Sport, which really shows the impact we can have as a club.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to use 1 minute.
Of course, use it, Maher.
Thank you very much. The third panelist that was going to be with us is Alex Calvin, who is the Policy and Strategic Relations from FIFPro, which is the players' union representing 65,000. So I asked her 3 questions, and I'm going to share with you the answers of one of them, because I don't think we'll have time for the 3 of them. She couldn't be with us, but she has sent her answer in writing. The question was, define players' impact and the range of issues a player wants to make a difference on. And her answer, at a time when we are 8 years away from the SDG targets of 2030, the world seems more polarized than ever. Football, and especially the players, provide some hope, and Football for the Goals provides an opportunity and a platform to build on football's global reach. Football players are becoming increasingly more visible and influential, and recognize that they can be agents of social change. Players have the power to galvanize communities, inspire hope, and shift the public conscious. Player impact is something at FIFPro that we advocate for, support, and protect players in their social endeavors. It is important that the issues that players focus on are authentic connections to social causes, and that these are predominantly driven by the players, who have innovative and unique ideas on how to influence, shift, and impact social issues, usually because they have experienced or are experiencing the social issues that they themselves are focused on. A good example of this is Marcus Rashford or Pernell Harder and Magna Eriksson, who focus on food poverty and LGBT+ rights, respectively. There are 3 specific ways players can create sustainable community impact: individual player-driven initiatives, existing collective industry initiatives, existing initiatives outside of the industry. However, these do not come without a challenge, and it is the role of FIFPro and their member unions to protect players in their social causes when they risk backlash or criticism. So that was the contribution that I could share with you. We don't have time for the other questions, but with this, I would like to thank our panelists and of course, Hani and DJ from Doha, and you.
Thank you, Maher. Thank you. Shukran. I will make you standing for a picture, please, if you can. Bien entendu, je vais demander de les applaudir encore une fois très très fort. Merci. Faites la photo, faites la photo. Faites la photo, together. Voilà. Merci beaucoup, Maher. It was really, really interesting, really nice. Thank you, Laurent, and thank you, Jean-Emmanuel. Merci.